Selamlar, hoş geldiniz. Şu hile olayı bitse artık. Önceden de bunları yaşıyorduk fakat bu seviyede hiç görmemiştik. Game Pass'e gelmesi her şeyi çıldırttı. Bir de Activision'ın hile sağlayıcılarını banlaması yüzünden biraz sinirlenmişler hile satan abiler. Ama burada Call of Duty Black Ops 6 hakkında geliştiricilerin verdiği bilgileri Türkçe bir şekilde, altyazılı bir şekilde yazdım tamamen. Çok alakasız yerleri kestim oyun dışı. Onun dışında tamamen Türkçe. Eğer merak duyuyorsanız sizin için 10 numara 5 yıldız olabilir. Bilgilerin çoğunu zaten Discord kanalında paylaşıyorum. Ama burada onların ağzından tam anlamıyla multiplayer mekaniğini, oyun hikayesini, sıralamasını bilmek isterseniz diye paylaşayım dedim. Sonuçta oyunun Türkçesi yok. Küçük bir destek olsun Call of Duty'ye Türkiye olarak. Bunu yapmaya çalıştım. Beğenilirse devamını da yaparım elbet. Çünkü biraz uzun ve zor sürebiliyor. Yapay zeka ile falan çevirdim. Bazıları ben düzelttim. Ama gayet akıcı, mantıklı bir şeyler çıktı ortaya. Emin olun bundan. Varsa sorularınız altta zaten cevaplıyorum. Hiç sıkıntı değil. Uzatmadan sizi baş başa bırakayım. Sağlıcakla kalın, hoşça kalın.
Gentlemen, hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the COD Pod. That's right, there are thousands, if not millions, of podcasts out there about Call of Duty, but this one, the first official from the belly of the beast itself. My name is Miles Ross. I'm a Call of Duty League commentator, psycho fan, and psycho fan, which is never going to get old to say, but very, very excited to divulge some secrets from this incredible product. Steph, you actually work here.
I'm Stephanie Snowden. I'm the Senior Director of Studio Communications. So I work across all the Call of Duty studios, which is awesome. And it's the cool, I love what I do. But a huge part of that is being part of the discussion with our players. So what better way to do that than to join the podcasting world? They'll literally give anyone a podcast these days. So that's why we're here.
That is why we're here. But this, the idea behind the COD Pod again is we've got very, very exclusive, obviously, access to developers, people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And you'll be hearing things on this show that you will definitely not be able to hear anywhere else. We're not going to give you the code. We're not going to tell you how to make the thing.
Nope.
But we are going to talk to the people who do
Yes.
and answer some burning questions. We're going to have a mailbag of sorts, which could be a good idea. We'll find out as time goes on. But
yeah, and if you want to be part of that conversation, please reach out to us. Post on social media to the platform of your choosing with hashtag CODPod. If you have questions, you want to let us know what you thought of the first episode, you want, mailbags, FAQs, we're going to have guests, we're going to have updates. You occasionally might hear some news here, which is very exciting. And so some announcements, some juicy little tidbits about future projects and things that are in the pipeline for Modern Warfare 3 or for Warzone. And so we have some exciting stuff to get to today, including, as you mentioned, a special guest.
Very special guest, a man who is deeply involved in the creation of Black Ops 6, Matt Schrontz, who will be coming on the show later today. The first guest, and a good one at that.
Matt is one of my buddies at Treyarch. He has been in the Call of Duty community for such a long time, is a badass, and I'm thrilled to have him on the show today.
Nice.
Zombies in the direct too. But yeah, I think in the campaign, just to kick things off, right? Let's talk about timeline, because I think this is one thing that people are really confused about, except for our lore heads. Shout out to you guys making the YouTube videos, because we literally watch them. I can't remember when this happened in the flashback in Black Ops 2. Was that before or after this? And it's you can go watch
thousands of hours.
Hundreds of videos about the story of Black Ops and how passionate a lot of the players are about it. And so it's amazing. And just to see what the content creators did with the direct has been super fun. But Black Ops 6 obviously happens. It's set in the early 90s. The campaign itself happens in 1991. The entirety of it happens in 1991.
That's early 90s.
Yeah.
For those you counting.
Just confirmed.
Yeah.
It follows the events of Black Ops Cold War. So the Cold War is over. The U.S. is the only remaining superpower out there. And it's also directly tied to Black Ops 2 that are set in the 80s, and that obviously includes Hudson and Mason dying. Yes, they are dead. I am sorry.
We
do. But I did see a lot of people confused about that. They're dead. So unfortunately they died, but having worked so closely with Woods, obviously devastating for him, for Frank Woods. So two of his closest friends and allies have, passed in this traumatic event at the hands of Raul Menendez, arch-villain in the Black Ops universe. And Woods is traumatically injured.
Woods is traumatically injured.
Woods is, well, he's out of the field now,
That's
and
a
that's
good way to
that's
put it.
like a very not Frank Woods thing. He's pissed.
Yeah.
Frankly, he's been injured. He lost his best friend. He's behind a desk. He hates it. And he's got a new protege at the CIA in Troy Marshall. And so Troy Marshall's this really exciting new character that a lot of what you will have seen in the developer direct is based on Marshall. And he's sort of this very like moral compass, justice driven guy at the CIA, and he's really making a name for himself. And I think Woods has got some feelings about that and kind of taking him under his wing, but also, we're not really sure who we can trust in the Black Ops world. I think that's one thing that remains true.
That's one thing that the trailers have definitely sold to me, is that, between characters like Adler, who is definitely a shifty dude.
We don't know.
Safe to say.
Yeah, we don't know what he's up to. He's back, right? Like
Yeah.
we saw him in the trailer. We know he's back. They talked about him a little bit, but I think one of the biggest things with Black Ops 6 and that signature Black Ops experience is sort of like, old friends or allies might be enemies, and your enemies formerly may become your new allies. I think it's that subversion of kind of like what and trust, and flipping that on its head and being like, what what is that, and what does it mean for our heroes
No,
going
it's
forward?
cool. Just the fact that it continues on for me from the Cold War campaign is great. The Cold War, that whole game for me was such a strong vibe. And obviously coming into the 90s, the early 90s, 91, even more sort of like powerful imagery. And I grew up, I'm a 90s baby.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe.
Not to
And
date ourselves, but like
We know
yeah.
you're out there. We know you're listening. But that entire sort of the 90s is a vibe when it comes to action movies, or whether it comes to music or pop culture. So I think it's going to be really cool to explore that in a time that I don't think Call of Duty's ever been before.
No,
So that's a vibe.
yeah, it's a new time frame from Call of Duty, and certainly for Black Ops 2 makes the most sense. Like there's so many. You've got kind of like the Cold War ending, the Gulf War kicking off. A lot of people in the U.S. assuming that this is like the safest, golden period that we've been in.
Prosperous.
Yeah, for a
Yeah.
long time. When really, what especially something that Black Ops is so good at it from a narrative standpoint, is digging into the sort of like the underbelly of that. Of course, we're not based entirely on real events. We're inspired by historical touch points, and I think what you see. The game, flip and put into that Call of Duty story, that it's that blockbuster, big action thriller, but it also has, a little touch of spycraft and some really interesting things. So I can't wait.
Okay, let's talk global systems quick then, because we've got the stage is now set. Let's talk a bit about our pieces and how they're going to move in this new game.
I see what you did there.
Thank you. Omni movement. Obviously, we've got a pro coming on the show later to talk about it, but you can sprint in any direction. You can dive in any direction.
Yeah.
You can go supine now.
Supine prone, full 100,
Supine is-
full 360 degrees.
Supine is probably a word that most people don't have in their vocabulary, but now, the next time you lie down on the couch, you'll be like, am I supine?
I think
And then you'll
so.
Google the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, I will say, out of kind of like all of my favorite things about Omni movement, Miles and I have had a chance to play and get, a bit of hands-on, quite a bit.
Just a bit.
I think for me, the supine prone is one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I have been able to pull off some really wacky, fun stuff, and pulling off these maneuvers, chaining them together. I think that's one really big piece about Omni movement that's people should be really exciting for, is not just sprinting 360, but how do you turn that into a slide, turn that into a dive ADS while sliding? How you react to certain materials in the world as a player is something that is just, there's so many options. Like the possibilities are sky high, and I'm just, it's going to be, I can't wait for people to get their hands on it, really feel it for themselves. Obviously that's going to happen in beta, so make sure you're staying tuned to hear about our multiplayer beta. But yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I can't wait to get my hands back on it.
And global systems also too. I know you talked about it, but global systems are anything that's across all three modes, right?
Yeah,
so
like-
Omni movement is MP, campaign, zombies. So
Yeah.
another good reason to play the campaign first. You get to hone your Omni movement.
There might be a tutorial moment where they want you to dive to do
Yeah.
something. I say they, the people who made the game. Thanks, guys, very much. But no, I'm really excited to experience that and
Sharpen the skills.
and sharp. I know. I like to run the weapons first. See how the game feels. Dive into MP and look a little bit better than everyone else. One thing about MP though that's really huge. Classic Prestige has returned.
Traditional Prestige is back.
Trad.
Was just like, this was something that was all for the community. You know, Treyarch has worked really hard, I think, at making this the best possible version of what people know and love about traditional MP, but obviously that hasn't been in since Black Ops 4. That was, pre-Warzone, and so the game has changed a lot. We really had to work to bring Classic Prestige forward so that it worked, in a really rewarding way that potentially was not as punishing as iterations past. And so I think this Classic Prestige that is offered in Black Ops 6 is a really unique balance of those things, and people have a lot of things to get excited about.
I have a lot of really fond memories of Prestige and playing through multiplayer the first time, prestiging, starting everything
Talk
again.
about nostalgia.
Yeah,
This
it really is. Like I'm definitely getting very nostalgic over it. But I mean, I know for a lot of other people it means so much. A friend of mine, he told me a story about when the game comes out on release, he and his dad, they both get a copy and they both race to Prestige 1. And I think the winner has to buy the other a steak dinner. They have to go out for a super expensive steak dinner or something. But the idea that they do, like, they have that wonderful race. You can only really do that with a Classic Prestige because then you kind of get to reset the game and play all of it again in a slightly different way. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm really stoked for that. Not just for their father-son relationship, but also for the idea that I get to relive that again.
So many people have those stories and those moments. I think throughout Call of Duty, that's, we celebrated 20 years of Call of Duty last year, which is absolutely wild. But when you hear stories like that about people making memories, having those moments and those connections in the game, like that's what it's all about. I think especially for us and in terms of, the folks who work on it every day and come to work and want to make a game that's like fun and rewarding and exciting for people and doing that and bringing them together. And so I love hearing that, and we'll definitely be looking for the Prestige races. Like, I'm already like, I will be glued to the streams that day. Just cannot wait.
Who Lawrence met and talked about it, he was saying that there's so many levels to this, and there is a secret unlock which we're obviously not going to talk about. I don't know about it, but there is something you unlock if you max mega ultra max prestige, which is not the official name, but you know what I mean.
We've done the maths on that, and it's a lot. So we'll be excited to talk about it. And Lawrence is awesome. If you haven't seen his prestige section in the direct, definitely go back and watch it.
Very cool.
Or watch the tons of videos the community has made about it too, because some of the content creators actually got to come to Treyarch and get a little sneak peek of Black Ops 6, and so there's some videos out there from them as well. But yeah, we'll be talking more about it at Call of Duty Next, which if you don't know, is our worldwide multiplayer reveal event. It's happening August 28th, and so that's when we're really going to be diving into things like Prestige, like MP maps. It's first gameplay we're seeing of Black Ops 6. So many exciting things.
Let's talk zombies though, because this is another major change coming into BO6. Round-based is back.
Round-based is back.
Huge.
Biggest, just huge news for the zombies community out there, who are among the most passionate, vocal group of people that I have, in terms of communities. They're so awesome, and just, hearing people just be so positive about RBZ being back and, Treyarch back at the helm for the zombies mode. Just
there's a lot of
so
chef's
excited
kiss moments, I think, for the community, which is really cool. 2 new maps, which is
2 new maps.
pretty wild. Can you say anything about that? Can you share deets? Can we get any notes?
Again, the creators came in a little bit ago now, and so we were excited to show this off to them. But we have 2 brand new round-based zombies maps coming at launch, and they are called Liberty Falls and Terminus, and they actually happen concurrently. So you play one, you play the other, you'll understand how that fits together in the narrative, which I'm not going to talk about, but I can tell you there's some really exciting things. And it basically, follows up with where we, last left off zombies in Black Ops Cold War. So fans of the narrative and the story in RBZ are going to be excited to see,
Awesome.
how that gets paid off. And yeah, we're going to have Zombies at next. So you're going to get to see people playing Zombies live. And we'll be talking about a lot more in the next few months.
I can't wait. Okay, you've touched upon multiplayer slightly. Obviously, multiplayer is my favorite part of Call of Duty. It has been for 20-something years now. What do you know? But I'm really excited to get into Black Ops 6. Between Omni movement and everything we expect from multiplayer, like we sort of know what we're getting now. 16 maps at launch?
Wild.
That's a lot.
I mean, the team at Treyarch has been cooking, and so that's 12 core 6v6 maps at launch and 4 strike maps, making, the full 16 for launch. And strike maps are similar to face-off maps from Black Ops Cold War. So think like 2v2 up to 6v6.
I'm so excited for multiplayer, though, Steph. I'm frothing for multiplayer.
We've all periodically been foaming at the mouth waiting for Black Ops 6 multiplayer. I could say that personally because every time I play it, I'm just...
There's something cool, new, different.
I just have had the best time.
I've been playing COD for a very, very long time. COD 2 was my first because I'm not that old. No offense to the elder states folks.
Yeah,
but COD 2 was my first game, and obviously it's changed dramatically since then. It's changing constantly, and every game is different in its own way. But there are still those core things you can expect, and you're getting a similar experience every time you're getting Call of Duty. But this one, between Omni movement and I know there are completely new weapons, like 100% new
to the franchise. I've never been in Call of Duty before. Yeah,
we're getting a lot of new, and we're really pushing the boundaries of it's still COD. Don't get it twisted, folks. But there's a lot of brand new here, which is really exciting.
Miles, who better to lead us through a burning questions answer discussion about Omni movement than the man himself, the Associate Director of Design at Treyarch? We're welcoming Mr. Matt Schronson to the COD Pod as our very first guest. Matt, are you just... you look like you're blushing. You're probably so excited to do this.
I am always blushing. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's absolutely wild. It's so exciting. And I wanted to ask you too, especially in thinking about your history and your previous experience on the Black Ops titles, like how did you really arrive at Omni movement? What was sort of the journey like for you to get there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you use the word journey. We use that a lot, and kind of everything does have a journey, and Omni movement's no different. So to go to the very kind of genesis of it, it came from us thinking about what it really meant to be a Black Ops game. And as we thought about Black Ops 6 and building it from the ground up, as we moved over to the unified engine, we were asking ourselves some very hard questions. And one of those was, we always kind of said, it's got to be signature Black Ops. It's got to be signature Black Ops. And so we actually took a step back and said, well, what does that actually mean? Like we're saying those words, but do we know what the definition of signature Black Ops is?
Right.
And there's a lot that comes with that. It's, us as developers, how we feel about it, but it's of course also how our players feel about Black Ops and its various iterations over the years. And
movement's always been a huge part of that experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's where the arcadey word comes into play. And so we did kind of shift that to what we call action hero.
Right.
I love that.
So Black Ops 6, it really kind of started with, what does it mean to be signature Black Ops? Part of that is this, pushing the boundaries. And then for Black Ops 6, really pushing on getting that feeling of being an action hero, which I think ties really nicely with, the spy thriller campaign, zombies, of course, like action hero opportunities abound. And then, of course, multiplayer.
That is the feel for me. That's the vibe. And I feel like you're nailing it here. It was perfect.
Just for you.
Thanks, man.
We did it. It's fine. Well, that's fine.
I'm a 90s baby. It counts.
In speaking of that genesis, and obviously doing something like this on the developer level is a massive undertaking, right? I think a lot of people hear new movement, they assume we twisted some knobs and pulled some levers and got a couple of animations, but then it's in the bag. This was just a huge labor and moving mountains for the studios to get this done. What did you guys try and sort of keep readjusting and learning as you went, as you were sort of creating what Omni movement was and kind of where it was, a year or 6 months ago beyond that and where it is today?
Yeah. So we tried a lot of stuff. It really always started with, we just wanted to really push on fluidity, where we've always kind of been, one of our taglines in the past has been fast and fluid. And so that's no different with Black Ops 6, but we really wanted to make Black Ops 6 the most fluid game possible. And so that started with looking at existing mechanics. We knew we wanted to keep dive to prone. We knew we were going to keep slide. So really pushing on the fidelity and fluidity of those aspects. And then we started talking about new mechanics. One specific one we tried was what we call the juke, or a sidestep. And that was kind of the origins of omnidirectional movement in Black Ops 6, where you could do this in any direction. It just wasn't hitting our goals of fluidity there. It just wasn't. It didn't work out. And on the gameplay side, to make something like a boots on the ground juke or very quick lateral movement feel great, you really had to kind of push it further. And then fighting against that was frustrating because you had enemies kind of quickly zipping and zagging out of your way. So we went back to the drawing board. And I remember a very specific conversation I had with our studio head, Mark Gordon, where we were talking about this and, what do we try next? And we really wanted to find that thing. And we started talking about Black Ops 3, and of course that was advanced movement and wall running, but you could boost in the air or wall run and then jump off and turn around and slide backwards. But it wasn't built for that. So we kind of said, well, how would you think about Black Ops 3 movement, but in this boots on the ground action hero game we're making with Black Ops 6? And I mean, long story short, it started with just a question of, well, what if you could sprint in any direction? Which is, could be kind of a small question to ask if you just like at first blush, but you've never been able to sprint in any other direction than forward in Call of Duty. So foundationally, it became a kind of a really hard question that we asked ourselves. And then as we started thinking about it, and as you can see with Omni movement, well, if we kind of break that rule and then, okay, well, if I can sprint in any direction, what else can I do in any direction? And that kind of built upon it. And Yale Miller, we've talked about it a lot of, you keep coming up with these things. Well, okay, well, now I can slide in any direction and I can dive in any direction. And then, as you mentioned, it piles up, right?
Why not why not all the other things?
Yeah. So we essentially are allowing you to do all those other things with Omni movement, and it really did start with being able to sprint in any direction. Like I said, as you mentioned, it's created a lot of work for us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have had to. I think we've talked about this just in the hallway or whatever, but somewhere in the thousands of animations and micro animations that you've had to build and capture out to structure this massive movement system change.
Yeah. I've tried to get the exact number of animations from the animation team, and I think
they're just like, here's a spreadsheet. Like, good luck. Yeah.
Leave us alone. We have work to do.
Yeah.
But Stephanie has questions.
Yeah, I want to know. I need to know.
It's definitely in the thousands. It wasn't just good enough to say enable sprint in any direction and there you go, right? Because we really want Black Ops 6 to be the most fluid game we've ever made and the highest fidelity game we've ever made. And a big part of that is our animations and what's the look that we're selling. So yeah, every single direction, whether you're standing, crouching, sliding, diving, the enhanced supine prone system ties into all this.
Yep. Full 360 full degrees of prone.
Yes.
It's unreal.
It feels cool.
And then
it does.
I mean, in addition to the animations, there's a ton of tech that's went into making sure that all of those thousands of animations and all the crazy stuff that our players are going to pull off are playing nicely together.
As a player, I mean, I've played it myself. I've experienced it. I've felt it. It's cool. But from your perspective as a designer, like, how does this change the way I play Black Ops 6?
Well, I won't get into how I know you play, Miles.
You just
You'll
got
still be
called
able to,
out.
you'll still be able to
got so
camp
hard.
and post up at cover.
I'm way more limber
Miles
these
is
days,
like,
man.
Cut.
Yeah, Matt, you definitely saw my stream in Cold War. I was a little static, I won't lie, but I'm a lot more limber now, man.
That's a word for it,
Yeah,
huh?
I'm a lot more loose. I'm limber, but that's how I feel. This game is I can do. I mean, being able to sprint in any direction is wild. I'm able to throw shoulders at new speeds. I'm able to get out of trouble quickly. I'm able to get into trouble even faster. Like it feels cool. How would you? I'm going to go back to my question, Matt. How would you-
Redirect. Yeah.
So there's a few different answers and kind of paths I could take with that question. I think so. There's obviously the action hero opportunities of diving forwards through a window and rotating backwards and shooting the enemy as you dive away from an explosion, like those action hero movies.
Making
we
your own
talked about.
highlight reel there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't forget theater mode.
And
oh, nice.
shout out to theater
What a
mode,
pro.
which is coming back in Black Ops 6.
So there's that, right? You can absolutely pull off those kind of bombastic maneuvers, but you can also pull off some really clever stuff that you couldn't do before, right? If I know an enemy is around a doorway, I can sprint sideways into a side sprint while I'm ADS and try to take them out. So there's kind of more micro engagement opportunities there.
And that's a good call out for corner slicing too.
Yeah, shout out corner
Yeah,
slicing. And yeah, so corner slicing, if you're rounding a corner or going around a doorway, your weapon and view model will kind of dynamically rotate depending on your speed and entry angle. It's a really cool feature that we're stoked about. And then on the movement, how does it change how you play? I just mentioned the kind of actual movement opportunities, but you're not forced to do that, right? Like I said, from day one, it really started with, we want to make this the most fluid game possible. So if you're just sprinting forward and mantling over cover and, doing the things that you've done in the past Call of Duty games, that's going to feel amazing and that's going to feel super fluid. If you do, I'm not saying this is you, Miles, but if you do just want to post up at cover, right? We wanted to make sure that it wasn't super frustrating to fight against those players who are living out their action hero fantasies. You can still be successful playing the way you've played before. But the hope is you see some people pulling some crazy stuff off and you're like, oh, that was cool.
I can do that too. Yeah, exactly.
It just sounds like, we've got more, as a player, from the player's perspective, I've got a lot more choice now.
Yes.
That's what it sort of feels like. Whereas, it was one thing to be able to move, like in the way we do in MW3 is great, it's really fast. But now being able to do that in any direction.
We actually had some players come out early on to test this out. And one thing I remember them saying is that, like, you really do have to kind of, especially at these players' levels who are competitive players, it's an opportunity to, you got to kind of rethink how you approach the game if you're really trying to pull off some really clever stuff. And I remember they were playing against some of us, the developers, and we were holding our own because we had been playing around with it for about a year. And I think when they saw one of our designers, I think he specifically jumped off a piece of cover, landed in a slide while ADS, and just smoked somebody. They were like, "Oh, okay, he's on a different level." So, we've been very conscious of making sure that we're not widening the skill gap too much. And like I said, if you just want to slow down, you can, and you can still be successful. You just may not look as cool.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
That's fine.
That's totally up to you. So it's definitely a balance for players of all skill levels. Like, I'll say that too. Certainly internally, when we all play test the game, there are people here who will cook you, like CDL adjacent level folks on the team that will absolutely smoke you.
Top
And you will
chefs.
be embarrassed. Yeah, like just disastrous. I've definitely never been destroyed by any of them at all. Matt has certainly never used me as a body shield in any of the play tests. Yeah, he would never do that to me. But we also have folks that are definitely not that, play the game super casually or maybe sort of like just getting started on Call of Duty. And internally, those play tests are always competitive. They're very fun, and I think are representative of the fact that Omni movement is not just for the chefs in the kitchen. It's for everybody, even people like me. I'm probably somewhere in the middle, and I'm still figuring it out. But
That's really cool.
I've seen you pull some moves off.
yeah, come beta. you guys are in trouble.
Whoa, no, it's cool. I mean, I feel like, Matt, we've almost gotten used to the way Call of Duty should look and feel and play, and I feel like Omni movement, in a really genuine way, is going to change the game in a cool way.
It's a huge
and not,
step
not in
forward.
like a sort
Yeah.
of, not in a really corny or cheesy or over the top way, but something that just enhances the already super solid Call of Duty experience, which is very cool.
Yeah,
That's great to hear.
awesome.
Yeah, it was never about let's find a gimmick to add in to another back of the box feature. It was never about let's make the game faster. It really was, how do we push on fluidity and provide those opportunities?
Yeah, it's like 90s kids with skateboards or rollerblades or something, and that's what's the new. That's a Black Ops operator now. Hell no, this is great. I'm excited. I'm excited. You said the B word.
I did say the B word, but I'm not ready to say it again yet. One thing I would like to say is that I think there's a couple of things that I would love to clear up with you, because we've got you here. We want to ask you the questions, get it straight from the source. And one of those things is, can you toggle Omni movement on and off? Can you turn on Omni movement on? The answer is no. Omni movement is a core foundational mechanic of the game. You cannot turn it off. But I think where people maybe got that impression was we have another new feature or part of movement that's called intelligent movement. You spoke to this in the direct a little bit. So I'd love for you just to touch on that, a little bit deeper, and the purpose of intelligent movement. I know you said too, like in terms of mantling and chaining those maneuvers together, intelligent movement presents an awesome opportunity that I think players of all levels have. It's something that's really exciting for us.
Yeah. So like you said, Omni movement is a core foundational feature that cannot be disabled by a player. It's across the entire game, campaign, multiplayer, and zombies.
Yep.
But with intelligent movement, those are a suite of player settings that can be turned on or off. By default, they'll be off for everyone. I think we'll probably have, in your first time flow, we'll present those and ask if you want to turn them on. And those are at a super high level. It's 3 settings with some little tunables in each setting. That the goal really is to reduce button presses or key presses, right? It's for controller or KBM. And that was important to us as we started working through our movement initiatives and Omni movement. That said, we haven't actually added a button press, right? Because it's still at its core, it always starts with sprinting. Those are the things that you can turn on and off, and players will be familiar with something like an auto sprint or an auto mantle. So it's kind of like that, but it's built from the ground up specifically for Black Ops 6 and Omni movement, where it's a bit more intentional.
And customizable a little bit to that degree too, I think.
That's cool.
Yeah. So like an example of the customizable aspect of it is with sprint assist, which is the sprint aspect of intelligent movement. By default, we're still playing around with our default values, but by default right now, it'll have 0 delay. So when you push your stick forward, you'll start sprinting. But we have a setting in there that lets you add a little bit of time. So for that, as we play tested, some people want to, a very specific example is if I'm at a piece of cover and I have mantle assist on and sprint assist on, if I push my stick forward, it's just going to automatically mantle.
Yeah.
So with the setting, you can add a, say, 1 second delay where I can push my stick forward before that sprint assist kicks in. So I can kind of nudge up to a piece of cover without mantling over. So yeah, we want to make sure that we're giving enough player settings there where players can kind of dial in their own experience, because it's like, like I said in the showcase, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. And
Right.
I'm sure some players will want to have none on, some players will want to have some on, and that's what we've seen in our user testing and internally.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Because my biggest concern initially was like, oh, am I going to get to a piece of cover and immediately fly over it and get myself killed? I hope not, but that sounds perfect.
No, and I think the coolest thing about cover to me, and this is something just in speaking from experience, and I've heard you talk about this, Matt, like the relationship between the player interacting with the world and the world interacting with the player, and finding the right place in between those things of like, if I slide it, I'm headed for, a wall, like a low wall in cover, I'm actually going to bump up against that and take cover, not just
Fly
hit
over
it and bounce off it or go over
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Same thing with like certain materials like glass, like you interact with those things differently as a player, whether you dive through them, you know, whether you're diving into water, all of those things. And so I think people are going to have a lot of fun with it, and can definitely just say again, like the best way to understand it is to feel it. And so definitely be looking out for some beta news
Oh my
soon.
God. I'm just thinking about like diving out of helicopters and like
You
all
said
the
action
various
hero
vehicles.
And Miles is like
I'm on top
lost
of
in
a
the
I'm on
sauce.
top of
Yes,
a
that's fine.
truck and I'm like yeah. I'm diving over mines and I'm just double akimbo, you know. Come on. This is what it's all about.
I can see the trailer already.
Yes, exactly. To a killer soundtrack every year without fail, by the way. Congrats whoever's putting those together.
Yeah, a lot of fire starter stands around
said
all of a
90s.
sudden. It's a little early for us to talk about multiplayer. I just talked about Next. Next, obviously, our massive multiplayer reveal event. We'll hope to see you there. It's going to be awesome. But in the meantime, I think there's a couple of things. We had some creators and press in-house at Treyarch a little while ago now. And
So, Signature Black Ops, score streaks, that's the thing, right? Since Black Ops 2. We like score streaks because it rewards all players fairly, regardless if you're slaying or you're capturing objectives or you're taking out enemy score streaks. That's why we like score streaks. In Cold War, we tried a bit of a different approach, where we didn't reset score on death, which was a big change. And the goal there was to just get more people engaging with the system. As we kind of went back and thought about really what we wanted to do with Black Ops 6 and accounting for player feedback, we're going back to just a traditional score streak system. Score will reset on death. Right now, score streaks do not loop. That was something we've talked about quite a bit. And really the goal there is we want to reward players in a single life fairly with high-end rewards or low-end, depending on your selection. But we really want to avoid score streak spam. That's something I personally just really don't like. I know a lot of players don't like it. I know if you're a really good player, you just want to keep calling them in, and so I get it. But we're erring on the side of less score streak spam for now. But like we said a couple times, we have beta, and we'll take all the feedback and go from there.
another thing that we've seen that I love and I cannot wait to try and master is the dedicated melee weapon, which is so cool. So you want to have and bring a knife to a gunfight, so to
Always.
speak. Now you can, literally always.
Never
it's always
leave home
there.
without it.
Yep.
A dedicated melee weapon.
Yeah, I mean that's really how it started. Is if we think about Black Ops agents, like if you just think about who they are, they're always going to have a melee weapon on them. It may not be a knife. Sometimes it's a baseball bat. I don't know. That's where it came from. Of let's try this. We're excited about it, and we just like the idea of not having to give up a secondary to take a melee weapon. So every player will have access to a dedicated melee weapon, and you'll have a few to choose from at launch, and then we'll have some fun stuff in store throughout the live seasons. But I mean, that's also another one. We didn't just throw in everybody gets a melee weapon. We've taken a look at tuning. We've got some kind of unique approaches to tuning because we also don't want everybody running around with melee weapons and being annoying little nuisances. So we'll have more details to share. You'll experience in the beta.
It's all about the balance, and we'll be paying attention in beta, and we'll look to make those changes as
fine
needed.
tune
Yeah.
the fun.
Yeah.
I think is I'm excited about. But I'm stoked for dedicated melee. I suppose I heard baseball bat mentioned there. I heard
There's
stuff
one literally right behind
right
me,
there
so
for those
just
listening.
felt-
For those listening,
Yeah.
right there.
Matt, it's time. I've had enough. Let's talk about it because I am so happy to officially announce that early access to the Black Ops 6 multiplayer beta will start on August 30th and run until September 4th across all platforms. Early access is available to anybody who pre-orders the game or subscribes to select Game Pass plans. Weekend 2 kicks off open access on all platforms from September 6th to September 9th, and that, of course, is open to everyone. It's going to be awesome.
Bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring their pets.
Can we party up? The three of us?
Actually, yes.
Do you
Yep.
do you really want?
This is a
We
disgraceful
can talk
addition to
offline.
the show.
Yeah, we'll
Miles is-
sidebar.
Yeah, just I mean,
I've got professional players who are friends. I'll be playing with them. Thanks.
Matt and I will be ready to
Fair
take
play,
you
fair
on.
play.
Yeah. But yes, I will be ready. I've already just like quietly winked that my favorite map is in fact in the beta.
Mine too, I think.
So
find
they're
out.
not the same map either, which is
No,
cool.
which is
Fun,
really cool.
Fun fact.
But all the maps are pretty fun I've played so far. Played
Yeah.
like 4 of them, 3 or 4 of them. They're pretty cool.
The beta maps
I'm a fan.
are rad. The launch maps, of which we have
How many?
16,
Damn.
are pretty kick-ass.
16 brand new launch maps.